Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Students for Political Engagement. Today, we have an interview with Greg Beros, who is the incumbent Ward 1 councillor running for re-election. So, hello to you, sir.
Hello, how are you? I like to call it Oak Ridges. If you say Ward 1, people go, where the heck is that? Is that the top of Richmond Hill, the bottom of Richmond Hill? They have no idea. So let's call it Oak Ridges.
All right, so the councillor for Ward 1, Oak Ridges.
Perfect.
So, to start us off, would you like to, give a short introduction of yourself and some of the things you think are your greatest accomplishments so far on city?
Sure, happy to. So I grew up as a child in Oak Ridges. The Beros family moved to Oak Ridges in 1974, and we have seen an awful lot of changes in Oak Ridges and the greater Richmond Hill since then. In 2006, I was currently involved in a family business. I was working with my father, and I said, you know what, I might try to get into politics. We knew tons of people. I was a member of the Lions Club. I'd been president for a number of years. I was involved in local sports and different things. My dad said, yeah, why don't you go ahead, give it a shot. So I knocked on doors and I put together a platform. In 2006, I spoke to people and I said, you know what? Oak Ridges is really lacking in a community center. It doesn't have a very good library. The library at the time was in a plaza. The shores of Lake Wilcox were in disarray. And taxes in Richmond Hill were increasing, sometimes double the rate of inflation. So I went out, I knocked on doors, and I shared people this vision. And over the last 16 years, we've got a new library on Yonge Street. The shores of Lake Wilcox have been completely redone. We've built a brand new community center, which people are enjoying. And we've been keeping taxes low. We currently, the last 3 years, did 0% budget increases. So I'm extremely proud of what we've been able to get done. And I say it together, because working with residents through all of these projects has been where we kind of got the vision on what we wanted to build and what it should look like. So it's never just one person. It's always a community that gets things done. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. Do you want to talk about now or later what I'm hoping to do for the future?
Yeah, of course. So we'll just ask questions about the various different types of policies that exist. So we're just going to start off quickly with transportation. So obviously transportation is an important part of a city and its development. So what have you and will you support as a councillor in terms of transportation here in Richmond Hill?
Well, I guess the first thing to understand is that we're part of a upper and lower tier government. The upper tier is the region of York. The lower tier is Richmond Hill. And the upper tier is responsible for mass transit, be it Viva and York Region Transit. And all of the major roads that are in Oak Ridges, Yonge Street, Bayview, Bathurst, Bloomington, Stouffville Side Road, Jefferson, they're all owned by the region. So those aren't roads or transportation that I have a direct input to. I can suggest to the region of York, my residents want this, and we can send letters and we can be very vocal, but in the end, we don't vote on it at the city of Richmond Hill. What I'd like to see is more traffic lights that are working together so that you can get through the city in an easier fashion. The question with transit, because I know a lot of people have ideas on transit. The big question is, what came first? Good transit or the ridership? We have some people complaining, I see those buses, they're half empty all the time. Well, how do you get people onto buses if the buses aren't reliable? So yeah, I think for a while you will see buses that aren't at capacity. But as people see that, hey, that's something I can trust, it's something I can rely on, they'll start to go onto the buses more readily.
All right, thank you. So of course, that brings us to our next question, which will be asked by Jacqueline.
Yes, thank you. And our next question has to do with public parks and green spaces. Public parks and green spaces are an important part of Richmond Hill. How will you work to protect and improve the environment of our city?
Well, Oak Ridges is very, very fortunate. We probably have the most amount of green space out of all of the wards in the city of Richmond Hill. And of course, we're situated on the Oak Ridges Moraine, and a lot of that land is already being protected by the province. Now, one of the ideas, and I'm getting ahead of myself here, but one of the ideas that have been floating during this campaign is getting the City of Richmond Hill Council to speak with the province, to have the province hand over or have some sort of a licensing agreement for the next 100 years on the Oak Ridges Corridor Park. It's 1,057 acres. It's in Oak Ridges, but it's currently not programmed or managed in a way that I think it should be. So I think if the City of Richmond Hill was able to get a hold of it with proper funding from the province, we'd be able to do some amazing work there because people are currently using it. And if you take a walk around Bond Lake, there's an awful lot of garbage around there. There's people that just have fires. There's all kinds of stuff going on, behavior that we don't want to have go on, but it's not the City of Richmond Hill's responsibility right now. It's another level of government. They're managing it through the Toronto Regional Conservation Authority. I think the City of Richmond Hill should have that really as a showpiece, kind of like we've demonstrated with the Lake Wilcox Park. We've done an amazing job there, and we had challenges at the beginning, but we've now come around to the point where I think we've been able to manage it real well, keep the place in good shape, and it's just a place for residents to go enjoy and really have a good time with family. So that's what I want to do there. But part of your question was how am I going to protect the green space? A lot of that's already been done. That's been done by the province with the Oak Ridges moraine legislation. Anything that's settlement, the province has given the nod, the as right we call it, that people can build houses there. And for someone to say to you, I'm not going to let people build houses where the province said they're allowed to build houses, well, they're either ill-informed or they're just saying something that they think is the right thing to say during an election. But in the end, the province will allow people to build on settlement land. I hope does that clear that up a bit? Does that help?
Right. Yes, it does. And I think going into a bit more specific, you did mention that you think the province should like give some responsibility of managing the Oak Ridges moraine to the City of Richmond Hill. So if the province were to do that, what are some ideas you might have for how the Oak Ridges moraine could be managed?
So I'm speaking specifically, let's just be clear, I'm speaking specifically to the Oak Ridges Corridor Park, provincial park that goes from Bathurst all the way to Bayview, 1,057 acres. It encompasses Bond Lake. I would love to see some lookouts on Bond Lake where people can go, they can sit, they can enjoy that space. Where right now, there is just man-made walking trails. Nothing is programmed in there. I'd like to get people closer to the water to be able to enjoy it. Same as some of the other spots in the park, picnic spots, maybe some picnic tables. Nothing crazy like ripping down trees and building soccer, because that's not what we want with that land. But the actual enjoying the nature, that's something we can do there and get families in there on a more regular basis and working better with the environment, but letting people enjoy it.
All right, thank you. And I think this takes us to our next question, which is about community safety, which is, of course, an integral part of what makes a community livable. So how would you as a councillor maintain and improve community safety in Richmond Hill?
Well, again, you're asking another region of York question. York Regional Police is governed by the body that is York Region, the upper tier. And the lower tier, being us at the City of Richmond Hill, we put requests up to them and we work with them in a partnership. But in the end, we can't direct them or add services to it. But here's what we do in Oak Ridges and Richmond Hill. We have what's called Road Watch, where residents can get together and they can put information up. We have a number of Road Watch programs where on the Road Watch program, people can track cars that may be offending the streets. We also then look after, we've got the radar boards and stuff like that. But when it actually comes down to a Richmond Hill City Councillor saying that they're going to impact whether our community is safer or not, it comes back to an earlier comment I said, we don't direct York Regional Police. So we don't have the voice there. It'd be like saying, Councillor Beros, how are you going to affect my pension in a different manner? Well, of course, that's federal government. I've got no voice there.
All right, thank you. And I think on another part of community safety that is under the city's jurisdiction is bylaw creation and enforcement. So do you think there are any things that could be done in that area to make Richmond Hill safer?
So bylaw is it's a big question, right? And it encompasses either property standards, which just dictates how the property actually looks, may not determine if it's safe or not. But for example, if someone's grass is too long, you can call bylaw, property standards officer will come out, measure it, give the owner a warning. If they don't cut it within a prescribed period of time, the city will come in and cut the grass and put it on your property bill. A bylaw in other cases is dealing with building standards. Is someone's deck, is it safe? Is it not safe? We have animal control, which we contract out. Now that's community safety, making sure that, dogs are, and I guess cats and other pets are either licensed as they need to be, or that owners are being responsible in manners. The big question that we come down to is, what type of environment do we want to live in? Do we want to create a police state? Or do we want to create a situation where people are working in neighborhoods on a more friendly basis? When I say police state, we could hire a ton of bylaw officers and you would get away with nothing. Now, we shouldn't get away with anything, but how far do we go? And that's the question that I'm always discussing with residents, because we want to live together. We want to live peacefully, but we don't want to always have the government down on our back saying, oh, your fence is 2 inches too high, take it down. Your fence is, you get the idea. So that's always a struggle we have. People expect that when they have a party, they should have their friends be able to park on the road for a couple hours, but we don't expect them to park on the road for 3 days. So there's that balancing point, right? We're always trying to find the right balance.
All right, thank you. And that brings us to our next question, which is financial health of the city. So as a municipality, it's important that we maintain good financial health. So what have you been doing and what will you continue to do as councillor to ensure that Richmond Hill is on good financial grounds, while at the same time providing same or improved services?
Well, it's a great question. Thank you. The city of Richmond Hill is debt-free. We've been debt-free for a number of decades. So the men and women that have gone before me did a lot of hard working, making sure they made good decisions. And I've picked up on that. There are times when we take a look at something and we say, is this something we need or is this something we want? So you really come down to those things of, okay, we need waste management. How can we do waste management in the most efficient way possible? Well, I'm promoting in this campaign that we change how we do waste management for 2 reasons. 1, financial, 2, the environment. So you've seen on recycling day, you put your recycling out at the street, it's a bit windy out, half the stuff blows down the street, you come home from work or school and there's garbage all over the streets. Well, if we transition over to a more automated system where Peel Region, Toronto, others have, and they have what are called totes. It's a taller unit that has a lid on it. Well, that garbage or that waste stays in there. And when the waste collection company comes, there's only one operator in the vehicle. And there's a robotic arm that comes out, grabs it, and dumps it. Well, now we're saving the environment by not having the waste all over. But they tell me we could save up to 20 to 22% in our waste management. So that's an example of doing something, I think, providing a better service at a lower price. We also had a request from residents over the last number of years for windrow snow clearing. So that pile of snow that the snowplow leaves at the end of your street, people wanted that removed. And it was a big topic. How come you don't do what Vaughan does, they would say, or North York? So we looked at it, we implemented it, cost about $368,000 a year. So it's not all that expensive, but we did that while not increasing taxes. So we clearly are able to do things like that by looking at every little section and being able to change it. I'll give you another great example. I'm the chair of the library board. So prior to me being the chair, the previous board said, we need an 8% increase to continue the library services. And the council said, no, sorry, you're not getting 8%. And the then library board said, okay, I guess we're gonna have to close on Sundays. And council said, no, we're not closing on Sundays. So we had to change things around. We took some people off the library board. We put some counselors on. Now, you have to understand the way the Library Act works. Counselors can never be more than citizens on the board, because you always want the citizens to be in control when it comes to voting. So we made those changes. And you know what? We started looking through the books and we found that there was duplications. So why should the city of Richmond Hill have an HR department and the library have an HR department? Same with IT departments, there was duplication. So we made some arrangements with the city. We saved almost $1 million a year. Now that's not a one-time saving, that's every year. So as we dig in and we look hard, we can find savings. Savings are there to be gotten. And those are the ways that we're going to continue to give residents better service and save money. For example, in Oak Ridges, we extended the hours in our library without increasing taxes. It can be done.
All right, thank you. And I think going into a bit more specifics on like what you mentioned of services. So as you go forward and you like look towards the future, do you think there are any additional services you might want the city of Richmond Hill to provide for the residents?
So like I said, I mean, there's things that I want to continue, but differently. And we're always listening to residents. For example, we added the windrow. That was a new service that we didn't have before. Sometimes it's just changing out things. For example, pickleball has become a massive, massive popular sport. So it's not that we're just going to add a ton of pickleball. We may find other programs that aren't as popular anymore and switch out some of them for more pickleball. Because again, at what cost do we add services? But I'm always listening to residents to find out what is it that we can do to make your life better and to offer a service.
All right, thank you. And I think this brings us to our next question, which is about housing and urban development. So urban development is obviously a very important part of City Council's responsibility. And right now, the lack of housing is a problem that faces Richmond Hill as our population grows. And on the other hand, density of housing and adequate services are also a concern of many residents. So what is your philosophy of how City Council should approach the issue of housing and balance these two issues?
So I've always been very, very vocal on building high density buildings. Now understand this, at Yonge and Highway 7. I've been very vocal about not building high density buildings in Oak Ridges. So you need to build the right product in the right place. And if we're having a subway come to Yonge and Highway 7, that's where we need to put the massive push of the density. Now, how do we get things built quicker? You get out of business's way. You get rid of the red tape. And we've seen this. I'd almost say we've had our hands slapped by the province. At Yonge and Highway 7, the province went and did an enhanced ministerial order. In my mind, I read it as, we don't trust you, the city of Richmond Hill, to get this done in a timely manner. So we're going to step in and we're going to give that area a guarantee that they can start, they can get things done. Now, that just means we need to do better. I've always been a big proponent of getting out of business's way and letting them get done quicker. Richmond Hill has got a bad reputation when it comes to building. It takes such a long time to actually get to the point where you need a building permit. That's got to change.
Thank you. Question. If this brings us to our last question. If you were to be elected, what would be the first issue you would try to address?
What would be the first issue I would try to address? It's a great question. Again, it's always listening to residents, but I mean, we've got to jump right into the budget. So we've got a budget that started a couple of months ago. We've got to bring that budget forward. We've got to deliver it, in my mind, with 0% increase, because I know that we can do that. We're going to continue a lot of the services that we've got going. We need to do a complete review of the planning department to make sure that businesses can get applications in and out in a very timely manner. We need to take a look at the waste contract. We need to figure out how quickly can we make those changes so that we can deliver those services to residents. We also need to take a look at the pickleball. Where can we get more pickleball so that people can use those and enjoy those? So there's a number of things we need to do. And that's typically done at the beginning of every council year. You start to take a look at what are this council's priority? Because in as much as I could give you the list of what I want to do, I have to work with my colleagues on council. Because as you know, there's 9 of us. If 5 say we're going to do this, it gets done. If 4 say we're going to do this, it doesn't get done. So it's a team approach in getting things done. So I'm looking forward to working with a group of people that are like-minded to actually move the business of the city of Richmond Hill forward.
And just a quick callback to your answer on development. Sorry, this is a bit on a backwards trend, but you mentioned how you are a big proponent of high rises on Yonge and Highway 7, but not up and to keep the density in Oak Ridges to be low. Now, do you think that perhaps if we spread out the intensification a bit more, we could allow for more medium-sized housing and in more parts of the city?
I think it comes down to the market, how much is land and who's buying that land and how close is its proximity to transit. So if you're on Yonge Street and there's a high order of transit there, that's going to give you an answer as to what you're going to build. If you're on, I'm trying to think of a street in Oak Ridges that doesn't have any housing right now. Pretty much everything in Oak Ridges is done. All we're really seeing is infill, where someone buys 4 or 5 houses and then they take them down and they build some townhouses, if appropriate. There's some areas you can do that, and there's some areas that you've got stable neighborhoods, and you need to make sure that that's going to actually match. The last bit that we're seeing in Oak Ridges finish off is King Road. People over the years have been buying up parcels of land on King Road, and they're finally now building the townhouses and the semis that are going to be going in that area. So that's a completion though of a community. It's more in Ward. I guess it's more in Ward 2, the North Leslie area, that we've still got some big tracts of land left. But a lot of that has been predetermined, pre-planned out as to how that's going to get built out. So Yonge and Highway 7, where the subway is, if you're deciding that you do not want to own a car, you're either going to have super reliable bus or a subway right near you to be able to do your life efficiently.
So let's say in the future that higher orders of transit come to Oak Ridges, would you then support perhaps development that were higher intensity if that transit capability were there in Oak Ridges?
Well, it's a real hypothetical question. There's currently no budget approved for the Viva transit system to go through the Oak Ridges area. There have been applications. There was one at Yonge and Bloomington that we shut down. I did a program called Stop Bad Planning. They wanted to build 13-story apartment buildings on Yonge Street there. And the residents of Oak Ridges, clear no. Over 2,000 signatures on a petition that I put. We had 600 lawn signs where people said stop bad planning. So it's not something that the residents want to see at this point in time. And I don't know if ever that'll be something that'll be there. We're a great community in a large city. And you've really got to kind of try to protect that look and feel while still giving everyone the opportunity to live. We have at the corner of Yonge and Bond, just the finished completion. It's high density from a traditional perspective. They're stacked townhouses. So we're seeing more of that product coming into the area. But we're not going to be seeing a 15, 20-story building in Oak Ridges probably in my lifetime.
So
all right, thank you.
Yeah, and one final clarification on your response there. I think you mentioned that there aren't any plans allocated to bring VIA into Oak Ridges, but would you want to see that happen?
I spoke a number of elections ago. I'm trying to think now. Was it the 2014 election? You can probably find it on YouTube. I was speaking at a restaurant on Yonge Street in Oak Ridges, and I was saying my vision for the downtown section of Oak Ridges was a greenway Forget about putting buses down the middle of there. Put a greenway down the middle of there. We're on the Oak Ridges Moraine. What could more epitomize our community than this nice green stretch all the way down the middle? But again, who owns Yonge Street? It's not the city of Richmond Hill. It's the region of York. Who puts in the Viva bus transit? The region of York does. Now, they've got funding partners. They've got the province. They've got to get on board to pay for all that stuff. So again, if a candidate tells you, I will not allow that to happen, be afraid, because even if the city of Richmond Hill votes and says, no, we will not allow buses down the middle of Yonge Street and Oak Ridges, the region will go, thank you so much for your input, and they'll continue with the plan that they see best. So it's understanding our roles and responsibilities, right? And I think for voters, it's also understanding when someone comes knocking at my door and they're saying they're going to do something, the voter has to kind of step back a bit and go, okay, different levels of government. Is this person actually telling me something they have the authority to do? Or are they just saying something that they think I want to hear? And that's I think what's as important about having an experienced counselor in the Oak Ridges or the Richmond Hill area, so that you can actually get things done quickly because you know exactly where you can go and what you can do, and you work within your own sandbox, shall we say.
Right. And speaking of, the region of York, in this last council term, you served as a regional alternate for other regional local councillors in Richmond Hill. So would that be something you would be looking at, like having the position again in the next council?
That's up to the regional councillors. So the regional councillors together have to decide who they want to appoint. If they appointed me again, I'd be honored to serve in that capacity. What happens is if one of those members are sick or they can't go to a meeting, they then tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, I can't go to that meeting. Here's the votes that are important to Richmond Hill, and these are the way this is how I was going to vote on it. So I'm not really an independent regional councillor. I'm stepping in for whichever one of those councillors can't go to make sure that we don't lose that vote. So yeah, I'd be happy to do it again.
Yeah, okay.
More than happy to. Yeah, it's a very interesting level of government. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for coming to our interview with Students for Political Engagement. And we'll see what happens in this election.
Very good. Thank you for what you're doing. It's really good for you.
And
Thank you.
Thank you for coming today.